is just something about a good police chase. We all know it's not a good idea. We all know that they're dumb, but there's just something about it. You just can't look away. Recently, I did a video breakdown about the absolutely crazy Atlanta takeover bust that happened a few weeks ago. But then my core memories, Jimmy Neutron brain blast thing started to happen, and I was like, wait a minute. There was a car chase that not a lot of people seem to know about that happened over 15 years ago. And yeah, it's a long time ago, I'm old, okay? But at the same time, it's the ultimate example of good driver skill still not winning. And that is the Oklahoma City police chase where a Mustang almost gets away. And honestly, this guy should have been hired as a stunt driver in Hollywood. Come drift into a different dimension on October 28th, 2023 for That Dude in Blue's Cosmic Drift. Come hang out at the car show, drive, and just have an amazing time. Hope to see you guys there. So let's set the scene. It's Oklahoma City, and our driver Scott is a criminal. He was just going about his business and decides to roll through a stop sign because that's what you do when you're doing really shady things. So he rolls through the stop sign, cop pulls him over, and the cop asks for the very basic things you need when you're in your car: your driver's license and your insurance. And quoting him, he said, "Of course I didn't have those." That just shows the kind of person we're talking about right now. But like I said before, he's got a ton of stuff in his car. As he quoted, his nervous energy was just really, really high. So straight to the point, he bolts. Doesn't even think about it, just goes, you know what? This is the best decision I can do right now. The highlight of this chase really starts when he merges onto the highway. And if you're unfamiliar with this chase, there's one thing about it that made it so famous at the time, is that no matter what the police did, they couldn't stop him. And they were using every trick in the book to get this guy. Normally, all the techniques that the police use in this video would work on pretty much anybody else, but for some reason, this guy just knew what to do in this car. He was in a Mustang, but you can't even tell if it's a V6 or a GT SN95. One, not a great handling car to begin with, and two, if it's the V6, really, really slow. So we don't even know what we're kind of dealing with when it comes to the vehicle he's in. We always see police chases in like Hellcats and stuff like that today, so let alone a V6 or even the GT Mustang was not going to get away in theory. But he's cruising on the highway, and step one, what do the police do? They throw spike strips out, and he just goes, no. Drives around them, avoids them, and keeps going. And unfortunately, due to copyright issues, I can't really play a lot of the audio, but I will say that the helicopter chasing this car and the news station chasing this car literally says, "You are watching stupidity in motion," which should be on a t-shirt. Stupidity in motion. That'd be a good, like, drifter boy kind of t-shirt to wear in an event, don't you think? I can totally see it now. Finally, the police come up and do logical step number 2. They pit maneuver him. And you're like, well, of course that's gonna work. It's a good old pit maneuver. Pit maneuvers are extraordinarily hard to resist, basically. And when the police come up and pit him, you're like, well, that was that. I guess the police chase is over. Until it wasn't. Usually a police pit maneuver is nearly impossible to counteract. Due to the physics of it, the driver skill associated with it, almost nobody kind of knows what to do when they're being spun out. Unless you have some serious driver training, racing school training, or even police training. Or you've taught yourself how to do 360 entries at your local drift event, which is pretty rare. Well, he does it. He steers into it, goes around, and keeps driving like nothing happened. And you're saying to yourself, well, David, yeah, we've seen plenty of police chases where people have been pit maneuvered and kind of kept their cool to an extent and kept driving. This one is different though. He doesn't let the pressure get to him. Obviously the police are not done, so they go up and try again. Yet this 360 is even cleaner this time. As soon as he gets pitted You just see it coming. He's like, I've done this before, I can do it again. And it's no issue for this guy. He's like, whatever, I guess I'll just keep doing this until I get away. And when I saw this the very first time, it was like I was seeing magic. Because every police chase ends the same. It's always the pit maneuver, they get him, they stop them, they get out, they arrest him. Well, this is 2 times in a row that he's just like, no problem. Normally on this pit, at this high speed, somebody would panic and not be able to react, but he steered into the skid and it just worked out for him. But could you imagine being how frustrating that is as the police officer, especially if it's the same police officer hitting him once going, all right, we got him, boys, we got him. Oh, I guess not. And then did it again and being like, I just did 2 successful pit maneuvers and it meant nothing. It did absolutely nothing. And you can also tell that on the second pit maneuver that was so clean, the police officer hit him in just the right spot to not damage his car. He hits him basically right on the wheel or right outside of the wheel on the quarter panel to where it wouldn't damage suspension, geometry, his alignment. None of that is really that affected by the way he got hit. And you can see how clean the push is. So naturally, it's not like a ram like you see GSP, you know, getting rid of takeovers here in Atlanta. It was just like a nice push. It basically helped him with the momentum come around. And just for a second, while you're watching this, you're like, okay, we know how this ends. But when you saw this the very first time, you're like, if that chopper runs out of gas, are they gonna be able to stop this guy? And obviously not, because they're gonna like never let this guy go. But at the time, you were just blown away by this. And then the third pit maneuver happens, but this time they change up their strategy by pitting him on the passenger side, which is a lot harder to control. You ever notice that when you're driving your car, you're going to a parking spot, it's a lot easier to turn your head and park from the left if you're in a left-hand drive car. If you're in a right-hand drive car, it's gonna be easy to park to the right. The human body likes things close when it comes to our vision, so naturally it's a lot harder to save a skid when it's on the other side. If somebody was like, David, I need you to do a 360 in a car right now, I would always do the driver's side. I would pretty much never do the passenger side unless I absolutely had to. It's much easier to see where you're going with your vision that close. Unfortunately for him, he got spun out on the passenger side and slams right into the Jersey barrier. And you're like, okay, it's over. It's done. Well, not quite. So he decides to pull a freaking Fast and Furious move and go into reverse and just accept his fate going backwards. And he's basically letting the police car push him to gain more momentum to then do a perfect J-turn. Literally perfect to keep running. And he uses the wall and he's riding the wall like it's NASCAR in 2022. So by using the wall and using the police car to give him momentum, he's able to execute this J-turn very, very well. Like, you don't see the car do a sloppy downshift. You don't see it buck forward or do anything unsettling. And an SN95 Mustang, which by the way was my first car, and doing a J-turn in that would be very bouncy like this, I can tell you. The stock suspension was definitely more of a cruiser than like a performance car at the time. You have to think it's basically a glorified Crown Vic, which is highly ironic being chased by a Crown Vic. And as I quote the driver, he said, "The car's still running, I got air in my tires, why give up?" Which I don't advise, do not do that, never a good idea. But you can kind of understand that perspective. Like, well, I might as well keep trying. But then finally, geography takes over. Unlike a smooth highway, they pit maneuver him and then boom, hits a curb. When you hit a curb like that, say see you later to your suspension, your control arms, your tie rods. There's so many variables that could be damaged in a hit like that, not even from the pit maneuver, but by basically jumping over that curb. You'd be surprised what a curb this tall will do to a car if you hit it just right. You're gonna be trapped in this situation. The fourth pit maneuver finally does the driver in, and he's just pinched between each cop car. He's got nowhere to go. And the driver said the police were so mad at him, they yanked him so hard that his shoes flew off. They're just so over his shit, which I can't blame them. Could you imagine being the police and be like, Oh my God, why is this taking so long? When normally one pit and somebody's done. And apparently the car was still running, so I guess that thing was just a champ. The guy got a 12-year sentence, but I wanna know who his lawyer is, because it got reduced to 18 months. Not 5 years, not 3 years, not 8 years, 18 months. Whoever that lawyer is, I need your phone number, please. Anyways, this police chase, have you ever seen it? How'd you react to it? And what'd you think of this breakdown? Put it down in the comment section below. And on that note, I typically upload on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Hey David, I'm at this spot. What's going on with this drift event?
Look up. It's about time you showed up.
We'll be right back.